SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
රින් සුපිරි එලියා වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 160යි.
Tonight, hard targets. Central Bank Governor unveils a 6-month roadmap with suggestions to deal with elusive export profit repatriation.
Request the government to tax profits of exporters at 28% and not 14%, where forex is not repatriated and converted, of course within the limits that have been specified.
Better than expected. Business confidence in the month of September exceed lockdown expectations to hit a 4-month high score. D-Day beckons. Dates set for hearings after charges served against former IGP and Defence Secretary. New beginnings. Schools in the Uva and southern provinces to reopen from the 18th onwards. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 1st of October, 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයිෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වලකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Macroeconomic. Now then, the Central Bank Governor Ajit Cabral presented a 6-month roadmap for macroeconomic and financial system stability this morning that aims to plot a course through tough economic currents. The governor called on all stakeholders to pull together and avoid rocking the already unsteady boat. Further, Governor Cabral also announced some new measures that will be suggested to the government to deal with forex repatriations by exporters.
It wouldn't be an understatement to say that Sri Lanka's current economic situation remains at a near historic low. Sri Lanka's luck, you could say, could not be worse than it is right now. From terror attacks to a globe-stopping viral pandemic, any chance the island had to get itself back on its feet has simply been foiled by a series of unfortunate events. And right now, no one in Sri Lanka can detail the long laundry list of economic challenges Sri Lanka has dealt with in the past 2 years better than Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Ajit Cabral.
There has been sluggish growth, COVID pandemic, increase in non-performing loans, increase in central bank's treasury bill holdings, the reduction in the reserves, increase in the unauthorized remittance flows, stockpiling of imported goods, hostile international media reports, shortage of foreign currency, sharp depreciation of the rupee, concerns expressed regularly about debt sustainability, weakened revenues, unfavorable sovereign ratings, concerned consumers, SMEs having concerns, deterioration of confidence. All that is, I think, a reflection of the underlying situation in the country. Not only for us, I think it's there for lots of countries in the world.
Presenting his 6-month roadmap for macroeconomic and financial system stability today, Governor Cabral also took the opportunity to issue a call to all stakeholders to pull together during the current crisis in order to help the country navigate through the difficult economic currents.
It has to be a shared approach. It's like all of us are going in a boat in stormy seas. We all have to go in a certain disciplined manner. We have to move forward without rocking the boat, especially in times of turbulence. If you don't do that, it is likely that the boat would capsize. So if you want to keep the boat heading in the right direction and moving in the right direction, we got to all understand what the role of each stakeholder should be. We should accordingly move forward.
Meanwhile, the central bank governor also alluded to a latent lack of enthusiasm among exporters in repatriating their profits and converting part into rupees, as exacerbating an already precarious forex situation.
In the case of exporters, we find that the goods flow has taken place and that's duly recorded as exports, but the corresponding amounts that need to come in as cash flows have not materialized at the same levels. I have seen a few people getting a little excited that they are not hoarding any dollars, but they are actually repatriating and converting. That's what we really want. So if that is being done, there's absolutely no issue and we are all on the same page. It is only those who have not done that, there is a concern, because that export actually becomes an export only once it is realized in rupees in this country.
To this end, Governor Cabral also revealed plans to suggest to the government to revise the current tax system for exporters who continue to ignore the central bank's directives in this regard.
Request the government to tax profits of exporters at 28% and not 14% where forex is not repatriated and converted, of course within the limits that have been specified.
In addition, he also announced measures to better help the central bank keep an eye on export inflows with the implementation of an international transaction reporting system. Following this, Governor Cabral also expressed the need to maintain a strong rupee rate based on the real effective exchange rate, pointing out that exporters have been reaping the benefits of a depreciated currency for long enough.
Sri Lankan rupee is at 200 rupees approximately to the dollar, but if you take the real effective exchange rate, it should have been about 168. So there is a pull of around 32 rupees, which is an advantage, which is a huge advantage to exporters. So I think there is no need for further depreciation of the currency. We should work within those parameters.
Further, he also called on licensed commercial banks to do away with the current multi-exchange rate system, which he reminded was a direct flouting of central bank directives.
We would stop the multi-exchange rates taking place in banks. We have seen some banks, they follow what is specified by the central bank, but we have been told that between exporters and importers, there are other transactions that also take place at different rates of exchange. We have in writing, I think the previous governor has mentioned that to the banking sector. We would like to see that being adhered to, and that those who do not adhere to, they'll be flouting a direction, and we wouldn't like to see that happening.
Governor Cabral also announced the scrapping of the cash margin deposit system for the importation of non-essential goods with immediate effect, and called on importers to act responsibly during the current period and import only what is necessary. In addition, he also called on banks to suspend parate repossession of lease assets up to 31st of March, urging them to resort to alternative methods to ensure continued payments.
Moving into other local stories now, schools in the Uva and southern provinces with students less than 200 are set to open in the weeks ahead. Governors of the two provinces made the respective dates, or announced the respective dates, I should say, in line with the Education Ministry's plan to reopen schools under several phases.
5 months have passed since the schools in Sri Lanka closed in April. Online education was seen as the way to overcome this predicament, and it was implemented. But that too was short-lived as government teachers and principal unions went on strike demanding wage hikes. It has now been 81 days since the unionists launched the strike, leaving children high and dry. However, with the island's new COVID cases and deaths on the decline, as well as the rapid progress made on the vaccination front, the Ministry of Education announced plans for a phased reopening of schools. Secretary of the Ministry of Education, Professor Kapila Perera, said that under the first phase, 5,131 schools with children less than 200 will be reopened. And today, it was announced that schools in the Uva and southern provinces with children below 200 will resume this month. Governor of the Uva province, AJM Muzamil, said that primary schools in the Uva province with under 200 students will reopen from the 18th of October. Meanwhile, Governor of the southern province, Willie Gamage, said that 514 schools in the province falling under the given criteria will reopen on the 21st. He added that schools will be cleaned, disinfected and prepared for resumption with the assistance of local authorities. Governor Gamage expressed hope that schools with a student body of under 200 in other provinces too will be able to reopen on the 21st.
The national celebration of the Children's Day was worked off today. Extending his wishes on the occasion, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa affirmed that reviving the lost aspirations of the children in the face of this current global pandemic has become an utmost priority of the government. Meanwhile, several programs are also worked off at national and provincial levels to celebrate the Children's Day.
Themed Children Before Everything, the national celebration of the Children's Day was worked off today. Given the pandemic situation, the national ceremony this year was a televised event under the patronage of Minister of Education, Dinesh Gunawardena.
සරලවම කියනවා නම් මේ දරුවන්ට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඉදිරි කාල සීමාව තුළ පොත් බෑග් එකේ බර අඩු කරන්න. විභාග බර අඩු කරන්න. කුසලතාවෙන් වැඩි කරන්න.
හැම විටම සාමාන්‍ය පෙළ සමත් වෙන්න ඕනේ, උසස් පෙළ සමත් වෙන්න ඕනේ, විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ගත වෙන්න ඕනේ කියන අරමුණම හිතේ තියාගන්න නැතුව අපි මේ කියන්නේ හැකියාවෙන් උගත් පරපුරක් හදන එක ගැන.
The Ministry of Environment also marked the Children's Day by distributing saplings among school children. During the event, the subject minister made a plea to teachers and principals to return to service when the schools start.
සමහර දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවන් එකතු වෙලා අපි දැක්ක පැල් හදලා දීලා තියෙනවා ඔන්ලයින් අධ්‍යාපනය ලබා ගන්න. නමුත් අද එහෙම පැල් හදලා දීලා ඒ පහසුකම් ලබා දීපු දරුවන්ටවත් අධ්‍යාපනය ලබා ගන්න අවකාශයක් නැහැ. ගුරු විදුහල්පති වැඩ වර්ජනයක තිබෙන නිසාවෙන්. ඒ අයගේ වෙනුවෙන් ඉල්ලීම් රාශියක් තිබෙනවා. මම මේ කමිටුවේ සමාජිකයෙක් විදියට අපි ඒව පිළිගන්නවා. ඒ අයට අසාධාරණයක් වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
Meanwhile, our humanitarian arm AdaDerana too got into the spirit of the day and fulfilled a long-standing requirement of a school bus for the students of Sirimau Bandaranayaka Primary School in Madirigiriya. The bus was officially handed over to the school at the AdaDerana headquarters today. Meanwhile, the Little Hearts Project Fund at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital also received a donation to mark the Children's Day. 1 million rupees was donated by the Sri Lanka Air Force Seva Vanita unit. In the meantime, extending his wishes on the occasion, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa affirmed that in the face of the current global pandemic, reviving the lost aspirations of the children in a secure manner has become a priority of the government. The head of state added that adults must provide the necessary environment to empower children with knowledge, attitudes and skills in order to endow the country with a generation of virtuous children. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that it is an imperative duty of all human beings to prioritize the protection of child rights. Adding that children are nation's future and tomorrow's citizens, the Premier called it the responsibility of the adults to provide the harmony and peace children deserve without any hindrance. What's more, Senior Professor of Pediatrics at the University of Colombo expressed delight over the government's plan to reopen schools.
පාසල් වසා තැබීම තුලින් දරුවන්ට වෙන හානිය කොවිඩ් රෝගී තත්ත්වයට වඩා තාමත්ම බරපතලයි. දරුවන්ට එන්නත ලබා දීමක් තාම සිදු කරන්න නැහැ. මොකද ඒකට නිර්දේශ ලැබිලා නැති නිසා. නමුත් ඒක පාසල් විවෘත කිරීමට කිසිසේත්ම බාධාවක් නොවන බව යුනිසෙෆ් ආයතනය අනිත් ආයතනත් පිටාන්නේ ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ රාජකීය සංගමයක් මේ පිළිබඳව පැහැදිලි නිවේදන නිකුත් කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි කොහොමද අපේ දරුවන්ව ආරක්ෂිතව පාසල් වලට යන්නේ කියන එක ගැන අපි අවධානය යොමු කරන්න ඕනේ. අවුරුදු 18ට වැඩි පුද්ගලයෝ සියලු දෙනාම තමන්ගේ ජාතික වගකීම ඒ කියන්නේ එන්නත ලබාගෙන හැකි උපරිම ආරක්ෂාවට පත්වෙන එක තමයි තාමත්ම වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. ඍජුව දරුවන් හා සම්බන්ධ වෙන පුද්ගලයෝ මේ එන්නත ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා නම් මං හිතන්නේ දරුවන්ට ඇතිවන අවදානම තාමත්ම අඩු මට්ටමක පවත්වා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Almost 95% of Sri Lanka's over 30s are fully immunised, with more than 50% of the 20 to 29 age group also being administered with at least the first dose of a vaccine against COVID. Meanwhile, the vaccination of children above the age of 12 with comorbidities went island-wide today, with health authorities planning to finish the first dose rollout to that category by next week.
11,773,685 people in Sri Lanka are now fully vaccinated, with 2,750,720 people awaiting the second dose of a vaccine against COVID. From those figures, the President's Media Division said today that approximately 95% of people above the age of 30 have been completely inoculated. As for the 20 to 29 age group, over 54.3% have received at least one dose of a vaccine, while 12.8% are completely immunized so far. The vaccination of 20 to 29 age group has thrown up various challenges, with having to tackle misinformation being chief among them. Meanwhile, the vaccination of children above the age of 12 suffering with comorbidities went island-wide today. The drive was initially launched at the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children in Colombo and the teaching hospitals in Kurunegala and Anuradhapura. It was later carried out across all hospitals in the Western Province.
අද දින සංජානනීය ආබාධ සහිත සහ ආබාධ වලින් පෙළෙන ළමුන්ගේ එන්නත්කරණය රට පුරාම ආරම්භ වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ ලබන සතිය අවසාන වෙන විට පළවෙනි එන්නත සියලුම සංජානනීය ආබාධ සහිත ළමුන්ට ලබා දීමට හැකි වේවි කියලා. පළවෙනි එන්නත ලබාගෙන මාසයකින් පසුව උන්ට දෙවෙනි එන්නත ලබා දෙන්න අවස්ථා ලෑස්ති කරගෙන තියෙනවා අපි. ඒ එන්නත් ප්‍රමාණය රටට ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ.
In the meantime, claims of certain countries only accepting travellers who are inoculated with a particular vaccine sans quarantine was yet again broached at the Health Promotion Bureau media briefing today.
සංගත රෝග විද්‍යාඥතුමාත් කිව්වා මේ ඕනෑම එන්නතක් ලබාගත් අයකට ඕනෑම රටකට මේ වෙනකොට ඇතුල් වීමේ වරප්‍රසාදය තියෙනවා. ඒක රටවල් විසින් තමන්ගේ ඉමිග්‍රේෂන් නීතියට අනුව වෙන සමහර දේවල් මත තමයි මේක තීරණය වෙන්නේ. විවිධ එන්නත් විවිධ රටවල් වලින් ලැබෙනකට වඩා ඕනෑම රටක බොහෝ වෙලාවට තියෙන්නේ ඒ රට විසින් නිර්දේශ කරන ලද එන්නතක් මිසක් හැම එන්නතම හැම රටේම තියෙනවායි කියන එකත් මම හිතන්නේ හැම රටකට මේක අදාළ වෙනවා කියලා. අපේ වාගේ රටකට මේ එන්නත් ලබා ගැනීමේදී තියෙන දුෂ්කරතා නිසා අපිට හැම වෙලේම අපි ලැබෙන එන්නත් සියල්ලම හැකීක්මනින් අපේ ජනතාවට ලබා දීමට අපි කටයුතු කරා. සමහර රටවල් වලට ඊට වඩා වෙනස් විදිහකට එකම එන්නත සමහර විට මුළු රටටම ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ වෙනස්කම් රටින් රටට තියෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, Dr. Herath was also quizzed on the planned booster dose rollout as well.
ඒක විද්වත් කමිටුව මගින් සෛද්ධාන්තිකව ඒ කියන්නේ මේකට in principle මෙවැනි ආකාරයට මේ එන්නත ලබා දීම සුදුසුයි කියන එකේ නිර්දේශය රජයට ලබා දුන්නා. ඒ නිර්දේශයට අනුව දැන් රජය එන්නත් මිලදී ගැනීමේ ක්‍රියාවලිය ආරම්භ කරලා තියෙනවා. මේක ඒ මිලදී ගැනීමට අපිට කොයිතරම් එන්නත් ලැබෙනවාද කියන එක මත ඊළඟට අපි වයස්කාණ්ඩ කාටද ප්‍රමුලිකත්වය දෙන්නේ කියන එක ඊළඟටයි තීරණය කරන්න වෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඉදිරියේදී එන්නත් මිලදී ගැනීමේ ක්‍රියාවලිය ඉවර වෙනකොට එන්නත් ලැබෙන කාලය වෙනකොට අපි කොයි ආකාරයට දෙන්නේ කියන එක මාර්ගෝපදේශ නිකුත් කරනවා. මේ මොහොතේ සෑම එන්නතක්ම නෙවෙයි අපිට අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ අපි මේ සඳහා විශේෂ වූ එන්නතක් වුයි අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඒ එන්නත නොලැබෙනවා නම් අපිට ඒ ලැබෙන තෙක් අපිට ඉවසා සිටිය යුතුයි.
Big 3.
Now, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires met with the visiting EU delegation today, who arrived in Sri Lanka to review the island's GSP Plus trade concession. During discussions, the Foreign Minister briefed the delegation on the progress of the country's reconciliation process, the review of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, engagement with civil society representatives, and Sri Lanka's cooperation with the UN Human Rights Council. The Foreign Minister observed that the island's relations with the EU are wide-ranging and mutually beneficial, including in the spheres of economic and development cooperation, highlighting the positive contribution of EU GSP Plus benefits in upgrading the livelihoods of the country's people. The EU delegation in turn welcomed the multifaceted engagement between Sri Lanka and the EU and reassured continued cooperation. The World Bank has approved the allocation of $500 million for Sri Lanka to develop its infrastructure facilities through its Inclusive Connectivity and Development Project. The project is expected to benefit 16 million people living in rural communities across the island.
The World Bank has approved $500 million in financing for Sri Lanka to provide safe, climate-resilient roads to connect agricultural supply chains through the Inclusive Connectivity and Development Project. The project is expected to benefit around 16 million people living in rural communities. This project is part of the development program to improve 100,000 kilometers of rural roads, a key initiative under the government's National Development Strategy. The project will build on the ongoing provincial and rural roads rehabilitation initiatives under the World Bank Finance Transport Connectivity and Asset Management Project and the Asian Development Bank funded Integrated Road Investment Programs, I-Road 1 and 2. The $500 million loan is provided by the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, while the variable spread loan has a final maturity of 28 years, including a grace period of 10 years.
Former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and ex-Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando was served charges for failure to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attacks today. With that, the 22nd of November has been set for the hearing to proceed that will see the duo tried for criminal dereliction of duty and murder.
Former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando, who were in office when the Easter Sunday terror attacks happened in 2019, were served charges before the Colombo trial at bar today. The duo are charged with criminal dereliction of duty and murder by failing to take measures to prevent the attacks despite there being adequate intelligence of a pending attack. Representing the Attorney General's Department, Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Pires said that 864 charges had been filed against each of the two suspects. However, that was amended to 855 charges each. He went on to say that 1,215 witnesses have been named in the case and requested the court to set a date for the hearings to commence. Meanwhile, the legal counsels of the defendants also sought a date to notify the stance of their clients following the perusal of the charges filed against them. The bench, consisting of judges Namal Balalle, Aditya Patabenege and Mohammad Irshadin, set 22nd of November to commence the hearings and said it will continue daily until the 29th of November. The Chief Justice had ordered that the case be taken up before trial at bar following a request by the Attorney General's Department to consider the case to be of national importance and for it to be taken up before a trial at bar sans a jury.
Now, despite predictions of an index free fall in September, unexpected resilience during the nationwide lockdown has resulted in a boost to business confidence to a 4-month high score. The report compiled by LMD Nielsen IQ cites high vaccination rates, a waning of public fear of the virus, and businesses having adapted well to new norms as the reason for the unexpected results.
Despite citing Moody's ratings forecast of doom and gloom for Sri Lanka's foreign reserve position for the next 3 years, the latest LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index for the month of September seems to offer some promise. With the index rising by 6 basis points in the month to reach 104 points, which happens to be a 4-month high, the index on a year-to-year basis remains lower than the 120 scored in 2020. According to Nielsen IQ's Director Consumer Insights Terika Mianadenia, the current business environment seems to be doggedly persistent despite dire circumstances. She adds that with the vaccination drive maintaining a steady momentum despite high death and infection rates, fear of the virus seems to be dropping as well. In terms of sensitivities, the report says that there is a sense of hope in society, with businesses adapting well to operating under new norms. Mianadenia adds that this optimism would likely result in the Business Confidence Index continuing to improve in the months ahead, but the current challenging environment could also result in a low Consumer Confidence Index. The report also admits to having its projections for September overturned by more than expected resilience after having predicted a free fall of the index due to the nationwide lockdown. It adds that ultimately the direction of the index may depend on 2 factors: the strategies implemented by the government to tackle shortage fears and the contents of the budget next month.
A marginal decrease was recorded in headline inflation levels in the month of September, according to the central bank's monthly report. Inflation levels, as per the Colombo Consumer Price Index, was marked at 57% for the month, with food inflation also down to 10% from 11.5% in August.
According to the central bank, headline inflation, as measured by the year-on-year change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index, has decreased to 5.7% in September from 6% in August. The decrease has been attributed to the statistical effect of the high base that prevailed in September last year. Subsequently, year-on-year food inflation also decreased to 10% in September from 11.5% in August. Year-on-year non-food inflation, however, increased to 3.8% in September from 3.5% in the previous month. Meanwhile, the CCPI, measured on an annual average basis, increased to 4.5% in September 2021 from 4.3% in August. Further, the monthly change in the CCPI was recorded at 0.47% in September due to price increases observed in items of both the food and non-food categories. Moreover, monthly changes in the food and non-food categories were recorded at 0.09% and 0.38% respectively due to increases in the prices of dal, bread and chicken. However, prices of rice and vegetables recorded decreases during the period. Meanwhile, prices of items in the non-food category recorded increases, mainly due to price increases observed in the health and education subcategories. Year-on-year core inflation, however, increased to 5% in September from 4.1% in August. Moreover, annual average core inflation increased marginally to 3.3% in September from 3.2% in the previous month.
Now, taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, Sri Lankan shares closed 17.64 points down at 9,442.30 today. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks, meanwhile, gained 4.73 points to close at 3,539.55, while market turnover for the day was recorded at 5.2 billion rupees. Now, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today we saw a bit of a dip in the market after 7 days straight run in the market on a continuous basis. So we saw the market in the green territory, a major bull run for 7 consecutive days. And today there was a bit of a breather where we saw some profit taking coming in after a long time as the index dropped by around 17 points to end at 9,442 points. So at the start of the day there was a lot of volatility, but mostly in the green territory as the index started to slowly lose steam and trend downwards. So after the midday we saw the market erasing most of the gains and turning into the negative territory and then climbing down slightly.
In the currency market, the rupee remained unchanged at 202 rupees and 99 cents against the US dollar. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.